Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, Nick is here in attendance with me once again. We're going to be going through all of the shenanigans, all of the happenings of the past week in WWE. So I'm talking about Monday Night Raw, I'm talking about NXT, and I'm talking about Friday Night Smackdown as well. So how about we dive into all the action, pick up all of the important stories, everything that went down this week. Let's start off with the first show, Monday Night Raw. So post-Clash at the Castle, an opportunity to go down different routes, different ventures, and to start things afresh. And we kicked off Monday Night Raw with a pretty big surprise, something that we didn't see coming. And it would open up with Seth Rollins making a shock return to WWE. Obviously, he hadn't been seen since WrestleMania. He was going through a few health issues, his knee, his back, whatever, and he clearly needed some time off after losing the World Heavyweight Championship. Clearly, he needed to sort of like reassess and get back into the shape of things. And yeah, he would come back in, and to the shock of everybody, he would appear on Monday Night Raw to begin the show. It was quite the surprise return, and it was nice to see him back in. He was looking pretty happy. He was looking fresh. He was looking ready to go. And he would imply that in the very first promo that he did. So he would open up by saying that he wants to get the World Heavyweight Championship back, and he'll attempt to win Money in the Bank in order to do so. Start from the not necessarily from the bottom, but like trying to earn his way back into the picture, and he thought that was the easiest, quickest way of going about that. Damian Priest wouldn't take too long before he would show up and he would get into the face of Seth Rollins. He'd come out and basically say to him that, if you want a championship match, all you got to do is ask. I'm here. I want to prove myself that, I can beat anybody who is worthy of the championship. Seth having had it for such a long time beforehand. Obviously, Damian would cash in at against Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania after he would defeat Seth. So Damian's still feeling like he has a point to prove against Rollins. He would not waste any time in offering Seth an opportunity, offering him a match at Money in the Bank for the World Heavyweight Championship, which Seth would immediately accept. Obviously, he would do. Other segments that happened in the night on this screen here, as you can see, we had a match between Braun Strowman and Chad Gable, where Braun Strowman would be successful. Afterwards, the Alpha Academy would split from Gable after Otis would be berating Akira Tozawa in the middle of the ring. Maxine would be involved. Crutch would be thrown to ringside. It would all get a little bit out of control for Chad. He wouldn't be able to handle things anymore because finally Otis would stand up to Chad Gable and he'd basically say, right, look, that's the last straw. We're done. Okay? Game over. Other results here would be a Women's Money in the Bank qualifying contest where Io Sky would successfully defeat both Kiana James and Zelina Vega. That wouldn't be without its controversy as well, though, because you would see Liv Morgan getting involved, distracting Zelina Vega. She'd be wearing Dominic Mysterio's cowl vest, which would be a story throughout the entirety of the night. And yeah, Io capitalizing on an opportunity there, becoming the first woman to qualify for the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Also, she has the opportunity to go back-to-back in Money in the Bank ladder matches as well after winning last year, successfully cashing in. Then also, last little bit of focus on the screen here, we had a tag team match between Katana Chance and Caden Carter, and they would go up against Damage Control's Dakota Kai and Kairi Sane. And Katana Chance and Caden Carter would get the victory here over Damage Control, thanks to Lyra Valkyria, who's been involved in the situation with Damage Control for the last few weeks, and clearly doesn't want to stop right here, right now. So, out of all of these segments right here, Nick, in terms of Seth Rollins reappearing, the dysfunctionality of the Alpha Academy, and that seeming to have been, dealt with now. Chad Gable's out, and, with Io Sky qualifying for Money in the Bank, what are your top moments here from just these segments alone? How happy are you to see Seth Rollins back? Are you surprised at how early he's back? And regarding like Chad Gable and stuff, do you think this was done in the right way? Do you think it was a big enough moment? Or do you think maybe they could have gone a little bit bigger?
Yeah, I was certainly surprised to see Seth back. I figured he would be gone for probably at least 6 months. Or, at least till SummerSlam, give him some proper time off. But was it beginning of April? So not even 3 months. But yeah, he looked good. And it was a nice palate cleanser from the sour taste left in our mouth from Clash at the Castle. So, and yeah, right back in the main event title picture. I don't think anyone can really, have too much to say about that. It is what it is. He's one of the best, so he's not gonna beat around the bush. And I don't think he'll win it back from him in Money in the Bank anyways. I think that's getting saved for Gunther, but we shall see. I was surprised Braun Strowman kind of beat Chad Gable like that. I guess it kind of helps propel his, super bad guy persona that I feel like's coming. And then, the split from the Alpha Academy at last. Say what you will. I do feel like it was stretched out a bit, and I think probably would have been better served at Clash of the Castle. I don't think it was a surprise to anyone on Raw, and they certainly did give it, a bit of an ovation, but it felt like maybe it could have been done on a bigger picture. But it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see if Otis can once again take that momentum and do something with it. Hasn't panned out well in the past. We shall see. I don't think anyone's surprised at Io Sky winning any match where you have to jump off something high. She's usually involved, so I think that's the right call, and I wouldn't have any issues with her being a repeat champion.
She is a fan favorite when it comes to those type of matchups, that's for sure. She is a genius to Sky after all, so yeah, you can rely on her to put up a couple of awesome spots throughout the matchup. She could be there for an entertainment value, or she even could be there, like you said, for maybe a back-to-back winner of that Money in the Bank ladder match. But yeah, very interesting stuff going on in the opening of Monday Night Raw. The action didn't end there, though. There was still plenty of stuff still to come. And we would see later on that night, Sami Zayn coming out and cutting a promo about sort of like his Intercontinental Championship journey so far, putting Chad Gable hopefully behind him, wanting to go on to other ventures. And sooner rather than later, we would have Bron Breakker coming out to insert himself into the situation, basically saying that he is the next guy that's going to go up against Sami Zayn. He wouldn't really have the ring just with Sami Zayn for too long, though, because Sheamus, the Celtic Warrior, he would come out and make his name present in the situation as well. He basically saying that, he's never won the Intercontinental Championship. He wants a shot at Sami Zayn as well. Sami with a golden opportunity, two men in the ring going at each other. He thought, you know what? Okay, I've got to talk to Adam Pearce. I'll set up a match with you guys later on tonight, and then we'll go from there. So that would then take place later on. We would see Bron Breakker going up against Sheamus. The match would be heavy hitting. It would be, quite hard fought contest between the two of them up until Ludwig Kaiser would get involved, and he would actually make sure that the match would be ended in a disqualification. He would attack Sheamus. They've had that ongoing thing for the past few weeks, and clearly doesn't want it to end just there. It would be a little bit chaotic between the three men then, because they would sort of get into a little bit of back and forth between all three of them. Eventually, Bron Breakker clearing up shop, he would give a spear to Sheamus on the outside, and then as Ludwig Kaiser looking to try and take advantage of a fallen Sheamus, he would do that thing where he runs around the ring, tries to sort of like slam Sheamus' head into the steel steps, as he's been doing for the past couple of months. He's done it to like sort of Xavier Woods in the past. He's done it to Giovanni Vinci. He wanted to do it to Sheamus here today. But Bron Breakker, the guy is crazy athletic and quick and powerful. He would run around the other side of the ring at the same time. We see an aerial sort of view from the camera, which was very well done, in my opinion. And Bron Breakker would literally catch up to Ludwig Kaiser, and he would spear him down in one of the most brutal spears that I think you're probably ever going to see. It was crazy. Well, really, really big fan of that segment. Sets up the Intercontinental Championship picture to something completely different off of Chad Gable. And now we're looking like, it could even be like a fatal four-way between all three of these guys, as well as Sami Zayn. Or it could be something else later on, maybe a triple threat match to determine the winner. Who knows? There are a couple of different ways they can go with that, though. Also, moments later in the night, we would have another Money in the Bank qualifying match where Jey Uso, he would successfully defeat both Rey Mysterio and Finn Balor in that main event. So qualifying for Money in the Bank and, putting away a couple of top stars on Monday Night Raw in the process. Regarding all of these segments, well, both these segments, I guess you could say, really, 2 or 3 segments here. What did you think of the IC title picture? Going off from Chad Gable and the Alpha Academy into this, completely new situation. Bron Breakker hasn't really had the most fun since being on Raw so far, but he's sort of taken opportunities into his own account, and now he's going after Sami Zayn, the Intercontinental Championship. Sheamus is involved, Ludwig Kaiser's there. It's a bit chaotic, right? And then also Jey Uso, what did you make on him qualifying for Money in the Bank? What are his chances at the PLE?
It had to be done. I think Sami had to move on from Chad. I think it was three times beat him. So yeah, had to be done. And then Braun Breaker, I was disappointed in myself that he wasn't in the King of the Ring tournament. But he certainly used that to his advantage and has, has come out guns blazing and certainly made his impact felt on the roster. And if you haven't seen the match between Sheamus and Braun Breaker, absolutely check it out. It was an incredible match up until the disqualification, and then the spot between Braun colliding. Him and Ludwig going around the ring at the same time and colliding was quite the moment. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see where they take that. I personally think Braun is obviously the main event talent here that deserves the push he's getting, and I don't think it'll be too long before we see a title on him. And yeah, the main event was good as well. We'll call this the main event match, I suppose. But yeah, with the three people in it, I don't think anyone expected anything less. Quality contest between the three, and Jey Uso winning, rightfully so. He'd been hyping it up, promoting it already before he even had his match. So I think his chance is as good as any. I was a doubter myself when he kind of separated from the bloodline, but yeah, no complaints, and he's certainly shown he deserves to be where he's at.
Certainly is looking to yeet himself into the Money in the Bank ladder match, that's for sure. And he's done exactly that. So it's going to be interesting to see, the rest of the field shape up as we go along in the next few weeks in the build up to Money in the Bank. But something that we have been looking forward to seeing shape up, and we've been very optimistic in the build up to what would follow after Jey Uso winning his match, would be the debut of the Wyatt Six. And this was just amazingly done. Like, I could go on about this for a long, long time, but to keep this to a relatively decently length YouTube video, we're not going to go into that as crazy as we can. But I am going to go through everything that sort of did take place during the entirety of this animated masterpiece, is what I'm going to call it here. Cinematic masterpiece. So it would open up with Jey Uso winning his match. You'd be, yeeting in the crowd. Crowd would be loving it. And then suddenly the lights would go out. We'd then see the Bray Wyatt door that he would be appearing from during his last run in the company. Obviously, he's not going to be Bray Wyatt, unfortunately so. But opening the door, coming through, is a crawling figure known as Abby the Witch in, what we're saying is going to be Nikki Cross, right? She crawls towards a lantern. Once she stands up and she's pointing towards the back, the camera goes that way. Camera heads backstage to see a few bodies that are just sort of like on the ground in a heap. I think there's a solo guy like on the right-hand side as well, if I remember rightly. But Rambling Rabbit, portrayed as who we think is going to be Eric Rowan, is stood above those bodies. He's holding a big mallet in his hand, and he's looking very demonic, as was Abby the Witch was. Then the camera heads over to a destroyed gorilla, where Mercy the Buzzard, Dexter Loomis, we're going to assume that's going to be, is sat on some boxes on the left-hand side. The lights are all flickering. There's carnage absolutely everywhere. It's just chaos in the gorilla area. And there are bodies like scattered around the room as well. It's a very it's a very crazy picture. It's an incredible scene, and it's just destruction everywhere. Everywhere you look, you see something else that you take interest in. But the camera doesn't stop there, because then it heads out into the corridor where Huskus, or Joe Gacy, as we're going to be knowing him as, is stood immediately outside Gorilla. He's just sort of like being a little bit creepy, sort of like standing there. Not really doing an awful lot, but guessing he sort of like inflicted his carnage moments earlier, and the camera's just catching up with what's going down now. But sooner rather than later, the camera immediately goes to the left-hand side, where we actually see somebody that we recognize out of the bodies that are sort of like scattered around in this little piece. Chad Gable is literally sat against a production crate. He's just sort of lying there. He's out of it. He's clearly out of it. He's got a absolutely massive head wound, with just an incredible amount of blood dripping down his face. it's a horrible scene. It's absolutely horrible. You know, he's been just absolutely blindsided by the looks of it. He's just been thrown down, and I don't know if he's dead or not. But it's, you know, in the last 40 hours of Chad Gable, he's lost an Intercontinental Championship match. He's been, you know, essentially split from the Alpha Academy. He could even be, you know, extremely badly hurt to the point where he's just been laid out. It's not been a good recent time for Chad Gable, right? And this is just sort of like, you say cherry on the top, but I mean, you know, it's far from that really for him. But yeah, the first person you actually recognize out of all of this. Then suddenly you see the camera go up, and there's a big beam of light where Uncle Howdy is stood, essentially just dancing to himself, very happy, very proud of everything that's going along in the past couple of moments. So the camera then follows Uncle Howdy as he sort of makes his way through all the cars we've just seen and back to the stage. On his way there, he brings all of the characters aforementioned moments earlier with him on his way towards Abby the Witch, Nikki Cross, and then they all make a lovely pose, you can see here on the screen, with the lantern in front of all the fireflies. It was truly a masterpiece, absolutely phenomenal way of ending Monday Night Raw, and just the way they sort of like built this up in the most recent weeks leading up to this period where they mentioned the massacre. That's exactly what happened. It was a massacre. How did you rate this entire segment, Nick? Did you enjoy it as much as I'm sort of like making it out that I have as well? Do you think they could have done a little bit more? But I mean, I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. I think you're probably going to have liked this. But yeah, what did you think in general about everything? Chad Gable, the destruction they caused, just the way they introduce each and every character individually rather than like together. What did you think? What are your thoughts?
I don't think I could have drawn this one up any better, or any of us could have if we tried. You described it beautifully. I don't think, you know, like you said, we could probably discuss this for an hour, but just for, you know, what it is, an incredible debut, and I don't think they could have done it any better, and kind of the build up in the mysterious way they did, with the clues and all that was great. QR codes. It'll be interesting to see how they proceed with this. I think that's probably most people's biggest thing at the moment is, you know, yes, the debut was awesome, one of the best that I've ever seen personally, and I think the biggest thing was we saw how this went with Bray. There were some opportunities for improvement. They could have booked better, obviously. But, you know, we're under completely different management here now. Things are being run, you know, very differently, and hopefully it's for the better. I think my biggest concern is, yes, everything here was great, but provided the talent that we're working with here, and that's the biggest thing I've seen all week is a lot of people deem everyone in this group as mid-carders. And I think you could be hard-pressed to argue that logic. But how are we going to see these guys booked? Are we going to see them booked kind of like Bray and very rarely wrestle, and that kind of helps keep the mysterious factor? Will they ever actually wrestle in matches? I think that's an option too. Is just have these guys kind of cause chaos like they did here, and maybe, you know, not necessarily have to wrestle in matches right away, or if they do, not very often. I think that kind of helps keep the prestige, you know, with the group. But that being said, I have no issues with them being pushed and, you know, wrestling and getting their comeuppance, I guess you could say, as a love letter to Bray. And I think the sky is the limit for this group. It'll be interesting to see how they proceed with it, though.
Yeah, that's a very, very understandable way to sort of like sum that up, I think, when you talk about how they're going to be perceived going forward. That's definitely the biggest question. And I know you mentioned that a moment ago. I think the booking is going to be very important for these guys, because if they book them to the point where they're getting them involved too much, I think then we obviously see we're prone to maybe overexposure there, then maybe highlighting weaknesses that you may or may not want to be seen at that point. So I think keeping them maybe a little bit sparse for the time being, is probably your best option at the moment, I would imagine, right? So you don't want to get them involved too often in the matches, but you can have them cause as much freaking chaos as you like, right? These guys are going to revel in that. So I think maybe if it was me, for example, I probably wouldn't book them in matches too often, and if I did, I'd have them absolutely demolish whoever's in that ring with them. So it depends on whether they do that or not, but it's a really exciting group. I think it's got so much potential. The creativity behind it is going to be absolutely unreal, and it's just whether they can sort of like continue that for a long period of time. That's like the big question. They've always been like those question marks and asterisks over these sort of groups and factions and gimmicks and whatnot. And hoping they absolutely nail this one, because it's an absolute treasure trove looking at it right here, right now. So yeah, I think there's more layers to this that can come up later on, but for now, we just live in the excitement of what it genuinely could be. So with Monday Night Raw ending with that incredible scene, we go on to NXT now, and NXT would open up with the 25-man Battle Royal for the number one contenders match for the NXT Championship. Trick Williams is gold. Who would be the one to challenge Trick Williams, though, going forward? 25 men. We didn't know who they were going to be. It was mentioned on NXT the week beforehand by Cody Rhodes. They could be people from other locker rooms. So that was quite interesting, the way he described that. Didn't exactly know who was going to show up. Could be anybody, really. And we definitely had a couple of surprises. There was Frankie Kazarian from TNA in there. There were people from the main roster. You're talking like Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza, as well as some other people involved as well. I think Dragon Lee was in there too, just to name a few there. But mostly NXT people. But also one person who was the viral sensation that was Joe Hendry. He would appear and he would make his entrance whilst delivering a short promo beforehand. He would get into the ring, and clearly the other superstars didn't like what he was saying about, him being so confident in this matchup. He would get eliminated first by Frankie Kazarian officially in this matchup. So to see Joe Hendry was a great moment as it was. I think as things stand, I think he's the I think the video of him making his entrance is the most liked video post WrestleMania from WWE. So that's quite something, that he's getting that traction. People are interested that heavily in him. And he is literally a viral sensation, as I mentioned moments ago. But the number one contenders match would go on. It wouldn't just end there, obviously. And it would come down to Javon Evans in the end, who would pick up the victory by eliminating Sean Spears. So Javon Evans securing his number one contendership status, going up against Trick Williams in the future. Javon, he's only 19 years old, I want to say. He's young OG, but he's surprising people this early in his NXT career. And I think it's going to be a very interesting match between him and Trick Williams as to how that one plays out and how it goes down. Two, I guess you could say, on the same page superstars at the moment, right? They've been on the same page recently, and they basically are now as well. But yeah, Javon Evans winning the Battle Royal. He's the new number one contender for the NXT Championship. Roxanne Perez and Lola Vice, who would have a triple threat tag team match up against Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend of Metaphor. They'd also be going up against Jasmine Nix and JC Jane, and it would be Roxanne Perez and Lola Vice who would win that one. And Lola and Roxanne have been a little bit. They attempted to be on the same page for the last couple of weeks, but you can clearly see there's an added extra incentive in there, and that's the NXT Women's Championship. Lola Vice wants it, but she's been saying to Roxanne Perez, "I'll come after it when I'm ready and when I want to. You'll know when I'm coming after it." And Roxanne Perez, always having a chip on her shoulder, knowing the threat of Lola Vice, what she can be in sort of a threat to a championship. Once the match would end and both women would be celebrating their victory, Roxanne Perez would hit a back fist onto Lola Vice, which is a big move of hers, not Roxanne Perez. Sort of like throwing shade to her there, basically saying if you're gonna be this close to me, then I'm gonna keep eyes on you, I'm gonna keep tabs on you, and I'm gonna be the first one to strike given the opportunity. And that's exactly what she did. So Roxanne Perez, Lola Vice win that tag team match, but clearly the big story there is Lola and Roxy. That looks like it's going to be a championship matchup going forward at some point in the near future. Other moments, we saw Kalani Jordan. She would successfully defend her NXT North American Women's Championship up against Michin. That'll be thanks to a Jada Parker interference towards the latter stages of that contest, which is going quite well up until that point. Kalani Jordan didn't appear to have seen the interaction between Jada and Michin, and she would just, hit her finisher, get the 1-2-3, and that'll be job done for her. Her first successful defense since picking up the championship just recently. And then we would have a promo for Obafemi in the middle of the ring. He would be going on about his recent championship defenses and basically saying, like, what's next for him. But before he could really get into all that, Wes Lee would come out and he would assert himself into the situation. He wants another match up against Obafemi, but this time he wants a one-on-one contest. He doesn't want to be in a triple threat. He wants to just be man-to-man. Obafemi, reluctant to accept at first, wouldn't really go about it. Eventually would come around in the end after Wes Lee would essentially persuade him. Obafemi would say, yeah, you know what, you can have your North American Championship match under one condition. It will be the first and last singles opportunity that you will get against me. So as long as I'm champion, you won't get another shot after this. Wes Lee accepts it. Of course, he's going to. He's beaten big men before in the past on his incredible NXT North American Championship run. And that match set up for whenever that's going to be taking place. But in out of all of these moments here, all these segments here, Nick, what did you make of Joe Hendry appearing? What did you make of the Battle Royal? Javon Evans, so young, but thrown into the mix already in that main event scene. And then obviously with Roxy and Lola being intertwined there with the NXT Women's Championship. How are you finding all of these sort of scenarios here coming along? And are you excited for Obafemi and Wes Lee?
Yeah, I think Joe Hendry being in WWE, I think, kind of continues this forbidden door concept. And my only complaint with it is that, everyone was excited for him to be there. And then this is the second time that Jordan Grace being the other, that they immediately get beat, in this case thrown out, and kind of removed from the situation. So I think that's an opportunity for improvement, in that if they're going to continue down this path, that maybe book these guys a little stronger when they come over. Otherwise, the incentive isn't going to be there, especially if they're dealing with, we can argue NXT is the better show sometimes, but it is the minor leagues, so to speak. And so that just not a great incentive, I think, to go back to TNA, and then they couldn't even deal with, not even the main roster. So I think that's an area for improvement on WWE's behalf. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go with him. And Javon Evans was a pretty big surprise to me personally. I feel like with his run-ins with Shawn Spears, I didn't think that he would even be, able to get that far. I figured they would have something that they'd kind of both get knocked out earlier on. But yeah, as young as he is, it's incredible that he's already in that main event picture. I think the match between him and Trick will be great. I don't see him winning, but I think it'll be kind of a dip your toe in the water scenario to see how Javon Evans can deal with it. As for the women, thank goodness that Lola and Roxy are not on the same page, because that would be a force I don't think anyone could overcome, at least currently. But yeah, that'll be good when eventually when we get that. I think while I don't agree personally, I think Lola is headed for the main event picture on the women's side, and will probably dethrone Roxanne when the time comes. Don't have too much to say about the Klein defense. It was a good enough match, and I think Wes Lee will take his title back from Oba. I think he was a great. I don't want to call him a placeholder, because I think he's done a great job. But essentially, I feel like that's kind of what it is, and I think he'll take that back here sometime soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Wes Lee back in the title picture. I think he deserves to get that title back. I mean, he was scheduled to win it back, those months ago, where he was eventually replaced by Dragon Lee, who would defeat Dominic Mysterio at that point. So I think Wes Lee just essentially picking up where he left off beforehand. It'll be nice to sort of like see him back in that picture, because he just elevated that championship to heights that I think we've never really seen before. It was crazy good, and it was hella entertaining. But yeah, how about we move on now to all of the extra stuff that did happen across the night. And we saw moments such as Fallon Henley. She would go one-on-one with Carly Bright. It wasn't all about this matchup, though. We've seen Wendy Chu in the last couple of weeks, making her return to NXT after a long hiatus away from the company, dealing with injuries and whatnot. But she would come back with this sort of creepy gimmick. She's maybe woken up on the wrong side of the bed with this gimmick, perhaps. I don't know about that, but yeah, she is just putting people to sleep for the fun at the moment, and she did not waste any time in this matchup, because Kendall Gray, who would be out supporting Carly Bright for this matchup, she would be the one that would fall victim to Wendy Chu here. She'd be put to sleep at ringside. That would allow the opening for Fallon Henley to take advantage. She hit the Shining Wizard, and that will get the win for Henley in that matchup there. So Henley continues to sort of impress since turning heel, changing up her persona as of recently, looking out for herself rather than anybody else. And continuing that momentum going forward. We'd also have moments such as Chase U going up against Gallows and Anderson. There'll be a backstage moment earlier on the night where Rich Holland would be given a Chase U t-shirt, essentially inducting him into Chase U. And Gallows and Anderson weren't particularly happy with that one. They basically go up and just call them nerds and basically saying, look at all these guys and what chumps. That would lead up to a match between Chase U's, Andre Chase and Duke Hudson. They would go up against Gallows and Anderson. And it would be Chase U that would get the victory there, but not without controversy. There'd be a little bit of a confusing situation with Rich Holland. I think it was Duke Hudson was going for a pinfall, and Duke would be held by Rich Holland in order to sort of secure the leverage there and put further weight upon that pinfall. Not able to get out to kick out there was the Good Brothers, and that would be the win there for Chase U. A little bit of controversy backstage, not really any sort of cohesion. Nobody really knew what happened. Duke Hudson was very confused. Rich Holland was very quiet about it. And yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a strange dynamic there with Chase U as to whether Rich Holland is really doing this for the best. Maybe he's just trying to go down different ventures with Chase U, maybe trying to turn them a little bit more sinister. Who knows? But yeah, there's definitely a little bit of confusion within the group, that's for sure. And then in our main event, you had Ethan Page, who in the early moments of the night, he would start off in that battle royal, but wouldn't really be eliminated. He'd be confronted by Ora Mensa, and they would sort of leave the ring, I think, through the second rope, if I remember rightly. And they would just have a brawl that led back to the backstage. Ava would say later on the night that Ora Mensa had been taken out of the arena, been escorted out, and he wouldn't be allowed back in. And Ethan Page would demand the match up against Javon Evans, just to sort of insert himself in the picture once again, try not to get out of that main event title picture, and he would have his match accepted by Javon as quick as he asked for it. Ethan Page would then defeat Javon Evans later on in that main event on the night, but that wouldn't be the end of the action there, because once that matchup had finished, Trick Williams, who was out at ringside, Ethan Page would go over to Trick, get up on his face. The two would basically be barking at one another. Sean Spears would appear out of nowhere, and he would deliver an assault to Javon Evans. That would sort of spark up a brawl between all four men, and eventually would lead to this wonderful cutter that we saw from Javon Evans off the ropes, off the top rope, I think it was, and he would take out both Ethan Page and Sean Spears at the same time. The NXT would end then with all four men sort of down with the NXT Championship in the middle of the ring, maybe hinting that, all four of these men are perhaps involved in this main event picture at the moment. Obviously, Sean Spears coming second in the Battle Royal, Javon Evans winning it, Ethan Page recently just losing out Trick Williams at Battleground, and obviously Trick being the champion. It looks like all four of these men are all involved in the situation here after Ethan defeated Javon in the main event. But, lots of things to take from these particular sections. What did you make of the main event in terms of the dynamics there, with all four of those men being involved in that picture, what appears to be Fallon Henley continuing her good run, Wendy Chu coming back with an absolutely crazy aggressive gimmick compared to what we saw last time when she was in WWE, and then obviously the confusion with Chase U.
Yeah, I think Fallon Henley is clearly being built up, she's being pushed quite heavily, so it'll be interesting to see how far they push her. I feel like her inevitable title opportunity will probably be sooner rather than later. I much prefer. I liked your naming of waking up on the wrong side of the bed, Windy Chew. I think that's great. And I personally like this gimmick a lot better than the last. I didn't care for the last one at all. So it's a nice change of pace. We'll see where they take that. The Chase U Good Brothers dynamic is a very interesting one, but I think they could put on some good matches in the upcoming weeks if they continue this, which hopefully they do. The main event picture is a bit weird in that the two faces are kind of going up against each other while the two heels here are on the other side. So I think probably, as you mentioned, that probably is the end route for the Fatal 4-Way for the title. Honestly, I haven't seen enough from Ethan Page yet in ring. I feel like his promo abilities are certainly there, but I don't know that he's the right person to dethrone Trick just yet. And I don't think Javon or Sean are capable either. But maybe just to get us through to the next PLE would be a very good quality match. I just don't think any of these guys are quite ready to take it from Trick.
Yeah, I've personally been very critical over the NXT men's division of recent in terms of like their star power for the main event picture. I haven't really seen enough from the division as a whole to sort of like have me as interested as I was previously when you had the likes of Carmelo Hayes, Ilya Dragunov, Bron Breakker, whoever else was involved in that situation. It just feels like now there's like, it's the dawn of a new era. Like somebody's got to step up. It's been given to Trick to do so. And I don't know, like it's just been so strange, the feeling of that NXT Championship picture recently. Having Javon go up against Trick is a very odd matchup. Am I invested? Personally, no, I'm not. But Ethan Page, he doesn't really excite me in that position either. We've already seen him go up against Trick Williams previously. Sean Spears really is probably the one I'm more interested in seeing in that title picture now. So yeah, I mean, with all of these guys involved, I don't know what's going to go down really. It's as a definite, but it seems like there's a number of ways they could sort of like put this. So yeah, I don't know. I'm remaining hopeful. Fingers crossed they do sort of like sort things out sooner rather than later, just to sort of like make things a bit more, I don't know, like a bit more interesting regarding this main picture. It means the NXT Championship. It should be the main attraction, right? So fingers crossed, hopefully it's just like a short period of time. They're going through a little bit of a rough patch and they can come out smelling of roses afterwards. But that was NXT as a nutshell there. Let's talk about our third show of the week, and that'll be Friday Night SmackDown, which was last night. And plenty happened on this show. There would be a number of scenes throughout the entire show that would sort of like build towards Money in the Bank. And the show would open up with Chicago's own CM Punk. He would, basically just say how when he challenged for the WWE Championship or the World Title in his hometown, he came out and won. When he did this, he did this. Unlike Drew McIntyre, who promised this, that, and the other, and didn't do anything. I mean, well, it's different situations, different times, whatever. Not going to delve too much into that one. Punk would carry on with his promo before Paul Heyman would suddenly come in and he would essentially warn CM Punk about the threat of Solo Sikoa and the Tongans, who, they believe that SmackDown is theirs. They're the bloodline. People need to acknowledge them. So CM Punk being in there, Chicago's own, basically saying how, this SmackDown is his. They didn't like that. They weren't happy with that one. They were clearly frustrated. They were clearly annoyed by it. And they were going to come out and they were going to, get up in CM Punk's face. Punk really didn't want to back down. The Bloodline would then soon make a charge to the ring. But it would be Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. He would come out and he would assist CM Punk with a couple of baseball bats as well, passing one to Punk in the process. And they would fend off the Bloodline. CM Punk just sort of like stood in the ring, just basically playing passenger here for this moment now. Cody Rhodes would challenge Solo Sikoa to a match later on that night. Between the two of them, just one-on-one. No other extras involved here whatsoever. No Bloodline, no Tama and Tonga, no Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. Just the two of them. Just the two of them one-on-one. And that match would be later on made official. That's basically the segment there and there. We then go on to other moments of the night, which would feature Chelsea Green. She would defeat Bianca Belair and Michin in a Money in the Bank qualifier. Bianca Belair hitting the KOD onto Michin. Chelsea Green taking advantage, launching Bianca out of the ring, going for the pinfall. Bianca couldn't get back in time. Chelsea gets the win, 1-2-3, qualifies for Money in the Bank. She's been involved a lot recently on SmackDown, right? She's come over from Monday Night Raw. They weren't happy over there, her and P, and they've sort of like been trying to make a much bigger impact over on Friday nights. It seems to be what they're doing. Obviously, Piper with that championship match, she came narrowly short against Bayley, and now Chelsea Green getting that qualifying opportunity for Money in the Bank, getting it, and then obviously qualifying for the matchup itself. She's got opportunity to be Mrs. Money in the Bank. I certainly wouldn't be against seeing her in that role. I think she'd be extremely entertaining with that briefcase. But it's a great victory for her. It's probably her biggest win since coming back to WWE. We also saw moments such as Drew McIntyre. I think there'd be an interview between Grayson Waller and DIY backstage, and suddenly you just hear like crashes on like the opposite side of the wall. It would rise up, and we just see CM Punk laid out in a heap with Drew McIntyre stood above him. Drew quit Monday Night Raw, right? He quit WWE on Monday Night Raw this past week, or so we thought he did. Did we though? This was kind of telegraphed, right? You know, Punk had embarrassed Drew McIntyre in his hometown, in his home country, and now Drew McIntyre has the chance to embarrass Punk in his hometown. And that's exactly what he did. He beat the living daylights out of CM Punk, battered, bloody, bruised, and he would drag him on his shoulders over to the ramp, over to the stage. He'd drop him down, and he basically starts like posing in the way that CM Punk would normally do. So Drew McIntyre clearly still not happy about CM Punk's antics, costing him the World Heavyweight Championship, but he got a plan. He stuck to it. He took out Punk when Punk didn't expect it. He took his eyes off of Drew McIntyre. Big mistake. You cost a man the World Heavyweight Championship. You think they're going to go down without a fight? Yeah, sorry, Punk, but bad news. You're in the hospital, buddy. You got taken out on a stretcher, got put in an ambulance, and left the arena. It was it was a baptism of fire there for CM Punk going back into Chicago on SmackDown. But that wouldn't be all the action there. We also had a triple threat contest, as you can see on the bottom right corner. Carmelo Hayes, he would advance at the expense of both Randy Orton and Tama Tonga and would qualify for Money in the Bank. He goes to the Money in the Bank ladder match for the men's contract, and he would join Jey Uso. So Randy Orton, there would be a situation with the Bloodline where basically they would want Kevin Owens and Randy Orton to not qualify at any cost. They do not want them in the Money in the Bank ladder match. And the goal from the get-go was stop them from doing so. So we would have the Bloodline getting involved in this one as well. We'd have people coming out to stop Randy Orton. That would all be sort of like countered by Kevin Owens and whatnot. And then it would get to a stage where Carmelo Hayes, off the distractions and stuff, would roll up Randy Orton and get in the 1-2-3 for the victory. Carmelo Hayes advances. That's a wonderful addition to the Money in the Bank ladder match. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch in that one. Kind of like Io Sky is in the women's one. I think Melo's going to provide similar sort of antics in the men's division as well, in the men's division match as well. I think he's a great asset to that matchup. And if he was to win, that would be phenomenal as well. I'd love to see Melo in the bank. I think that would be great. But I think maybe outside a chance of him winning. But regarding the start of the SmackDown, what did you think of all these segments here? Drew McIntyre demolishing Punk, Bloodline coming out and, essentially being challenged by Cody Rhodes for a match later tonight, Chelsea Green and Melo advancing to their respective Money in the Bank ladder matches. What are your thoughts on the opening sections?
Yeah, it's no secret that I'm not CM Punk's biggest fan. That being said, the promo here just kind of made me scoff a bit because he's referencing a match that he had 13 years ago. I don't know. Yeah, I guess, Paul is great there in his promo and playing the terrified manager is great. It's that's quite the development that we'll see over the evening with him. Chelsea winning, I think, is a great opportunity as well. I think everyone and their brother thought that Bianca had that one in the bag, as she usually does. So her getting that surprise win got the good pop from the crowd, And yeah, like you said, she doesn't get a lot of time. Hasn't fared very well, and she doesn't get a lot of time on TV. But every second she does is very well utilized. So I have no issues with her being Miss Money in the Bank. And yeah, I think she could do terrific things with it. McIntyre taking care of CM Punk was a lovely, lovely sight. I kind of think personally this was probably kind of called on the fly because of how probably ill-received him losing again in the UK was. So I think this is probably trying to right that ship a little bit. I could be looking too far into that, but with how CM Punk was taken off, he's got to be gone for a while now. You can't come back next week. At least in my opinion, I feel like that would be a bit of a waste of what you just did. At least a month or so, right? But shaping up nicely to happen maybe at SummerSlam. I don't know. But yeah, that they're continuing the story. He's getting he's landing his blows back. So it'll be interesting to see how long this gets delayed now that he's off and injured. Mello winning is a great shout as well. As you mentioned, I think it would be a great fit for Mr. Money in the Bank. And Carmelo and Jay to this point, no complaints from me.
Yeah, my main question mark over Drew at the moment is what do you do with him? Because you've got CM Punk, as you said, you made a great point. He has to be out for a little while at least. So with Drew no longer in the title picture, that's clearly obviously occupied by Seth Rollins and Damian Priest. And with CM Punk supposedly out now for a little while after this, assault from Drew McIntyre, I'm not too sure what they do with Drew for the time being. Like, they could suspend him, maybe. That could be like the only saving grace. They keep him off TV for a little while. When they bring him back, maybe he gets an opportunity to qualify for a title picture. I don't know. Gets screwed by Punk once again. Then maybe they build that to the SummerSlam match. Then perhaps we're all anticipating. I'm not too sure. It's a bit of a weird one. But regarding everything else, so happy for Chelsea Green. And Carmelo Hayes advancing is a great thing for him as well. So we had a few other pictures later on in that night, and trust me, it doesn't end there. We had LA Knight coming out, basically demanding Logan Paul appears. He wouldn't show, though. Instead, LA Knight would get Santos Escobar. It would be revealed later on in that night that we would get LA Knight, Santos Escobar, and Logan Paul on next week's show to qualify for Money in the Bank. So one of those three men will insert their place in the ladder match. But LA wanted Logan. He got Santos. He would get up in his face and have a little bit of a back and forth argument, and it would result in fists being thrown. LA Knight would give Santos Escobar a BFT just out of nothing really, and then as LA Knight is sort of like berating Santos, he kind of takes his eyes off the prize. Logan Paul jumps in from behind. He is there. He is in the arena, and he lays out LA Knight. So that hatred between the two men there continues here. They'll bring that into the match next week, where they'll go up against each other, as well as Santos Escobar being the third party in that one. I mean, that gives Santos a very good opportunity there to basically take advantage of situations in that sense. But yeah, these guys, they really do hate each other, and Logan Paul once again getting into the mind of LA Knight week and week and week out. Well, in out. We would also see a triple threat contest for the men's division again, where we'd have Andrade. He would go up against Kevin Owens as well as Grayson Waller. Yeah, Andrade going up against Kevin Owens and Grayson Waller for an opportunity to qualify for the Money in the Bank ladder match. And Andrade would get the victory. He was the one that would insert himself in that ladder match for Money in the Bank briefcase. And Andrade finally wins a big contest since coming back to WWE. Yes, he's the speed champion, but that's only on X. Doesn't really get any sort of traction outside of the platform. But Andrade, yeah, this is definitely his biggest win since being back in the company. It's great to see him inserted into a main event ladder match opportunity. I think he's definitely got talent to be a world champion. Whether this is his time to win the briefcase, I'm not too sure about that. But it's good to see him in and around the picture and, given opportunities to get that first world title picture in WWE. But it was a decent enough match, to be fair, between the three of them. Just Andrade coming out on top in the end. There'll be the distractions at the start of the matchup where KO will get taken out by the Bloodline. And, that message from the Bloodline, do not let them advance by any means necessary, will continue throughout the night. Then we go into our main event. Speaking of the Bloodline, they'd be heavily involved in this one. It would be Cody up against Solo. The match didn't last very long. I think it was a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes or whatever it was. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but it didn't seem like a long time before the inevitability of the Bloodline, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa. They come out, they get involved, they would cause the match to end via disqualification. They beat down Cody Rhodes, and as you'd all expect, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, they come out to assist Cody, and they would turn the tide. It would be the three of them back in Solo Sikoa into the corner by the turnbuckle. Solo, sort of a bit scared at first, would then essentially turn it into laughing, a bit of mockery. No one really knows why he's doing that. Why are you laughing when there's three men who are clearly all threats to you stood right above you and you're literally sat on your ass in the corner? There's a problem with that, though, because for Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Cody Rhodes, Jacob Fatu would debut in WWE, and he would literally demolish every single person in his path. He would destroy Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Cody Rhodes in their own individual ways, and he would just cement himself as he has arrived in WWE. There's been a lot of talk of Jacob Fatu over the last number of months about what he can bring to the Bloodline. And from what we've seen in the short couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes it was probably, of him decimating KO, Randy, and Rhodes, I think we can get rather excited about what he can bring to this faction and what he can bring to Friday nights as well as a whole. Because, yeah, he's a bulldozer. He's basically like a more athletic Umaga, essentially, which is kind of crazy to think about it. He's got the power, he's got the agility, he's got the speed, he's got the just the complete destruction on his mind to just wreak havoc. And I think that's what he's going to do in this Bloodline picture that has just completely transformed from what it was at WrestleMania. I swear every time we do one of these reaction videos for the week, one of these recap videos, there's something different in the Bloodline. And what are you making, Nick, of Jacob Fatu, his influence? What are you making of the group now? Do you think we're done for the time being? Do you think there could be even more Bloodline members that are ready to come on in and to get involved and to make their names known? Or do you think this is now it? They're good for the time being, that's it. And then also win for Andrade. What do you make of that one?
Yeah, I like the LA Knight bit, especially the bit where he takes the title from Logan here at the next PLE. Yeah, I think Logan's had a decent run, a bit part-time, but I think LA Knight is way past due for a title, so I'm excited to see that. Andrade winning is obviously great. Pretty big fan of him. Unfortunately, he's in an absolute stacked match already with Jay and Carmelo. So as you kind of alluded to, I don't think he's going to win, but just him being there is a great opportunity to stand out for him. And another member of the Bloodline. And to even take out, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton is an accomplishment in itself, but to take out the babyface of champion of the company as well. Wow. Quite the debut. And another Samoan member. 4 is an awkward number, personally. I would not be surprised in the slightest if we get another one. Make it 5. 2 for each side of the new head of the table there, right? But yeah, I think eventually we have to stop. But maybe one more. And good luck to anyone on SmackDown. I don't, currently they don't have any gold, but with how big of a faction they seemingly are going to be, I don't feel like that's going to stay that way for long.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's troubling times for people on SmackDown. Are they safe? The Bloodline are going to cause absolute chaos. Cody Rhodes being the main man in all of this, you know, with the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. I mean, Solo is the man who wants the gold, but I mean, Jacob Fatu, he just come in and basically laid waste to top talent such as Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and as well as himself, Cody Rhodes. I think you could probably put his name in that hat, you know, going forward. So whether it's going to be Solo, it's going to be Jacob. I think, you know, it's a big target that these guys have on their back for sure. But yeah, you know, it's a fine episode of SmackDown in my opinion. I think there were a lot of important things to take from this one, moving forward to Money in the Bank. The pictures are becoming clearer, and you know the scenes are being set for definite. But yeah, that is basically the recap for the week. Then, guys, we went through Monday Night Raw, NXT, and Friday Night SmackDown. So much stuff has happened. You know, Drew McIntyre quit, but then came back and took out CM Punk on SmackDown. We had the debut of the Wyatt Six. We had Money in the Bank qualifiers, so with the men in the women's division. We had Jacob Fatu debut. It's been a pretty heavy week. There's been a lot going on. So what did you all make of everything that happened this week? What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments of what you decided you liked, good and bad. And yeah, whatever you think is going to happen going forward, especially with the Wyatt Six. That's obviously the biggest talking point of the week, I think. But yeah, if you like the video, guys, hit a like on the video and then subscribe to the channel if that's what you'd like to do. But we'll be back with another video at some point going forward in the future with more reactions, more recaps going forward. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. This has been The Push with Dick and KP, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you next time.